All right, today I'm going to review Goliath, the 100-Year War Between Monopoly, Power, and Democracy. So, like the subtitle says, this book is about the history of corporate monopolies and politics in the U.S. It was interesting. I really liked the book. It's an engaging read, and the narrative really draws you in and keeps your attention. So it was enjoyable to read. I was really interested in the subject matter. I've reviewed other books that are similar. This book is a lot like Tim Wu's book, The Attention Merchants, which is about the monopolization of information networks. So it's a similar topic, though this book focuses on a much different area. This book is really talking about politics and corporations. Like the main people that you're introduced to are politicians, and the people they're fighting against are other politicians and corporations. And that's kind of the characters that the book focuses on. And it covers a lot of political developments and what corporations did and how that impacted the economy, things like that. I liked the book. It was good, but it wasn't perfect. In a lot of this book, the author seems to sacrifice historic accuracy and nuance in favor of the narrative. There's a lot of places in this book where the author will put motivations in people's heads and will characterize events in a very singular manner where it's clear that he's leaving out a lot of the other arguments that people are using for what they're doing. So this is really evident when the book talks about economics. And there was this economic movement where economists started viewing antitrust in the lens of, or they started viewing antitrust such that they only deemed it to be bad if the monopolies increased prices. As long as they offered low prices or prices lower than what would be available without the monopoly, then the monopoly was deemed to be just fine. But really what the monopolies were doing was they would use low prices to just put everyone else out of business. And there's a lot of problems created here, but this type of business practice, like standardizing products and gaining economies in scale in order to generate efficiencies and drive prices down, that's not a universally bad thing. It's a trade-off. You get low prices and a few standardized products, but you lose a lot of the diversity in the marketplace and you concentrate power in the hands of the few people who are controlling the market. And there's a balance in the middle, and there should be attributes that affect where the equilibrium stands in, depending on what's necessary. Like, for instance, when countries are at war, it's highly desirable to have large economies of scale and a few standardized products, but that's not what you want when you're trying to generate innovation and new ideas and, find new paths to how to create products that people want. So there's a balance there, and at no point in this book does the author really seem to have an appreciation for the trade-offs involved in certain economic forces. What this book is just a bunch of examples of corporations with money doing shady things with politicians that don't have ethics. And that's interesting, and when the author's talking about it, it's mostly correct, and overall I'm pretty much on the author's side on what he's arguing, but it's clear that there's not a grand framework here for understanding how we should balance various economic forces to achieve optimal outcomes in society. This is really just a bunch of examples of how monopoly power can go bad, how concentrated political power can pair up with monopoly power and do a whole lot of bad stuff. And I liked it, and it was interesting, it was engaging, but it's far from a comprehensive view of the topic that really develops all the themes and kind of ideas that encompass the whole topic of monopoly power and economics and society. Not that any book could really achieve it, but the author very clearly has a partisan take on history and economics, and it's more evident in some parts of the book than others, but it's definitely there, and especially anyone who's read a lot on this topic or knows a lot about economics and the history of economics especially, there's large things that are left out, large kind of spheres of argumentation and ideas that are not appreciated or given their due. And so the book kind of skims over things in order to create this very engaging narrative that paints all monopolies as bad. And most of them are pretty bad. I mean, that's why I was interested in the book in the first place. I read a lot about like monopolies in technology, especially. I only my computer's using Linux. I don't use Google Cloud services. I host my own. I do all kinds of stuff to get away from those people, but I still don't think this book gave like concentrated businesses, or I don't think this book gave a lot of these economic arguments enough weight in the book. I mean, he didn't take opposing views very seriously, and it's pretty clear. So I would recommend this book if you're interested in the history of monopoly power. This is definitely an interesting book to read, but you should be prepared about the limits of the book and that the author very much favored a cohesive, straightforward narrative in lieu of really covering the nuances of some of these economic theories and how they've interacted with society in the past. So I hope you guys like this review. I've got more reviews coming soon, so like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.